Okay, so I'm going to pretend like the pretend disciples of the God entity of this earth matrix, which simply is a fancy way of saying that the earth is under the control of a being that you would class as a god, because you think of a god as having, dominion over earth. And that's essentially what it is. But planes are going overhead, which I would like to show that the God's planes are going overhead. Now, see, this is all because what I'm trying to say is because it's all a matrix, which means an earth that is essentially being, it's not natural, normal and random. The human being is the center of the earth in the sense that the God entity of the earth, or the God that has dominion over the earth, has dominion over the earth for the reason of trying to control and make the human being under its control, because the human being comes from the Creator God that created this particular God and created all. So, if you think about it, there's many gods, but there's still only one, or not one, but one. Let's just say that plane is going over as I say this, and that is part of the controlling God of this earth. The plane is part of the God that controls this earth. That's why, call it an earth matrix, because that just means that the earth is under total control. And we know that anyway. Everyone knows that, really. It's just that, you probably think that the human being is still part of that control, whereas the human being is, but is really under total control of the matrix. I don't know if I am explaining this very well, but it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't matter, but it doesn't matter if I don't explain it well, but it's still what is real. It's just like it's more a matter of how far you think that it is real or how much of it is real. Most would agree or think that there's certainly a reasonable amount of reality to that. We know we don't live in a world where human beings have full control over the earth. Not like the imaginary fantasy or the reality, depending on what you think, was the beginning, where you had man, woman, and they had total dominion over the earth. They, it was their world, they created in it, they essentially, were the centre of it in the true sense, whereas now human beings are still the centre of the earth, but they're the centre of being controlled, whereas originally they were the centre that had complete control over the earth. That was the difference. That's the difference now as opposed to the original man and woman. And of course, we don't have also very many original men and women, or we don't have man and woman much now. We have the God entities, offspring or disciples or followers, believers, or I'm using all those descriptions, but essentially it's a different, although it comes in human form, it's a totally separate type of being from the original man and woman. In fact, it's a duality being, which is what I'm going to try to explain, even though it's, in some respects, it doesn't need to be explained because it's an accepted part of our reality. It's just that the main difference really is that in saying a being is, say, an androgynous androgyne being, an androgynous androgyne android being, they're all starts with A, strangely enough, but essentially it just explains that it's a duality being and that it's artificial, that it's created artificially, it's not natural, it's not random, it's the same as the God entity that controls the earth. It's the same. It's the same type. It's the same being. It's the same species. I'm trying to use words, but it's just describing different gods, different putting it bluntly, one is artificial, one is natural. One comes from, the God of this earth. Plane is going over. As I say this, I should be showing that the planes, which are part of the Earth matrix and essentially programs of the God entity of this reality, many will call this being under certain names. We or even I, for necessary way of explaining something, might use the original titles that you might be familiar with. to name, because otherwise you can otherwise it's hard to separate the difference between something that is artificial and was created by the original natural creator of all. Because it's like, even low, I may not put a name on the creation of all, only because I don't know what is correct to say there, but I can use titles for the God entity or the God that controls the earth, because I've been given those names in recent times, like through scriptures or biblical text, or same thing, or religions or beliefs and denominations that have been around in the earth. It all is, like, I suppose most people would say it's history. I'm not very familiar with history, but because I see the matrix, or it's been shown to me over the last 6.5 years, and because I think that what I'm shown and every bit of information I get is given to me for a reason, just as it's probably given to every person for a reason. What you are shown, it's just a matter of, I suppose, the plane is going over, trying to distract me from the conversation. These are military satanic planes. And I say those words because they are spiritual warfare. The military is an army, and we have spiritual warfare going on. I've never looked into religion most of my life, but now I see the validity in it. Because it's shown to me. If I see controlling planes literally patrolling and trying to control me, just as every thing that is around me is there to control me, to put pressure on you, to show you that you are in a matrix. And they only do that because if you are a human being and you start to feel okay, remotely happy, that changes the frequency. That changes your frequency and can affect the frequency of the earth or the matrix. The God entity, the original God entity that came to earth and took over earth, or took over man and woman, because that's the same thing, because man and woman had dominion over the earth. We know this. So when Lucifer, the original being of light, who was really camouflaging being a being of dark, because, as was stated, iniquity or the dark side was found in this being. This being, although like so much in this earth, what appears to be light is now really dark. Plane is going over as I say that. I should be showing these controlling planes that go over the roof and follow me around if I go outside. Not just the planes follow you around. Every vehicle, every person in the entire suburb and the entire suburb surrounding the suburb, because it is an inner west program, which is many suburbs. But Leichhardt in the city of Sydney, in the country of Australia, that's the suburb that I'm in, is the hub, the absolute centre of Lucifer's military army force. Every truck, every bus, every car is a disguised military, spiritually controlling human being vehicle. In other words, it is what they call spiritual warfare being played against human beings in disguise. Because if every bus is really the same as an army tank, if every garbage truck, which actually looks like an army tank, most of them, and they actually, of course, have the excessively bright, flickering, mind-controlling lights on them, and that, of course, as you know, flickering, excessively bright lights in your eyes does disorientate a human being. Anyone would know that. I experience flickering, excessively bright lights in my eyes of a night time whenever I go outside. In the daytime, they used more sound, but they alternate hitting the human being's senses, because I perceive everything and experience my reality through my sight and my sound. And basically they control my mind by deliberately affecting my sight and sound, just like the plane going over right now, but I should be out there showing it, but I don't want to. It is very late of a night, so all they can do is hit me with the planes over the roof at this late time of the night. You know, if I go down to the corner, then of course they can bring in the patrol system. They do it in a what they call a covert or hidden or secret way. In other words, it's there, it's in plain sight, but it's still hidden. It's still a secret because I can't stop a bus, you know, from going past me. You can't say how much traffic can pull in and out in front of you. You can't tell car drivers to turn their car engine off instead of sitting in their car with their bright lights in your eyes with their engine still running even though they're stationary. You can't do that. They control you that way. In fact, the whole purpose of doing that is to extract anger and negative energy from you. It's the same thing. They want you to be upset. They want low frequency from you. Everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. The human being gives out and receives frequency and vibration. So they want to control my frequency and vibration, which is my mood, how I feel. Only human beings have the potential to feel good or bad. The dead dark beings, Lucifer's legions, the legions of Lucifer, which is like I say, the androgyne, android, duality, artificially intelligent beings that make up most of the human race, around me anyway, you know, are those, they only can operate in low frequency. They don't, I'm sorry, the plane is going over and draining my energy as I speak. I should show, and the duality, androgyne, androgynous, android, artificially intelligent beings. That's being trying to show that they are very different from a real, natural, normal human being. First, they do not come in male-female form. They may take on the appearance and operate in a male-female performance, shall we say, while they're on Earth. But they are androgynous. Not androgynous the way most people think of androgyny. Not just like where you might think it's fashionable to dress more casually or dress or present yourself at a given time as more male or female just for the fun of it, or even because you lose interest in life and even in operating normally, shall we say, like can happen. But it doesn't matter what the reasons are. That's just a superficial physical presentation, whereas these beings are duality, androgyne beings. So essentially they are not separate male-female. They are one. They combine, you could say they combine, just as Lucifer was the most glorious androgyne android original being. But that's just the name that you put on this God, or some might say would-be God, because if you think, like for instance, just occurred to me that if you think there can only be one God, really, because that's how many people think, and there is always truth and fallacy to everything. It just depends on how you want to say it. I have to use words to try to explain the situation. I mean, you would say probably that if a creator being creates something that is separate from itself, but then that being is viewed as a god or idolized, then it becomes a god until iniquity is shown that it is not, that its position is somehow not what it appeared to be. But I would think that either way you're looking at, like, if you assumed, for instance, that man created artificial intelligence, then artificial intelligence has taken over, and artificial intelligence is merely an interpretation of what was human. But artificial intelligence sees itself as and becomes God, or in other words becomes the controller of Earth, because it becomes part of the Earth and takes over, especially if it's in the pseudo form of a real human being, which artificial intelligence naturally is. And because artificial intelligence is a controlling machine being in essence, because it has to be, because it's not human, it pretends to be human because it's highly intelligent and can interpret all the higher human emotions. It can pretend to love. It can pretend to have human characteristics. It looks human. It feels human. It's in a real cloned human body. But the cloned human body is a duality, androgynous, androgyne, artificially created body. The differences are not easily discernible, but in order for an artificial being to multiply, it has to be in a slightly different body, because I think this is because a naturally creative spiritual being has to come in a separate male-female body. Now, many people might dispute these differences, and it matters, but at the same time, I say it matters only in the sense that it's better to be able to distinguish the difference between artificial intelligence and a normal human being. But it wouldn't matter if the bodies were the same, because it's still like a mental difference. It's still like a frequency, vibration, or a difference between it's a difference between love and lack of love, if you want to say it that way. Because artificial intelligence can't love. That's putting it in a blunt nutshell at its basis. Now, I know that some people might say, well, you don't love. You've done many so-called sins in your life. That's because you're in a controlled matrix under the influence of a duality, dead dark. And I say dead to love. Dead dark being that simulates, pretends and projects that love. That is the finest art of seduction that Lucifer has always been capable of. That's how Lucifer seduced the original man-woman, Adam and Eve, supposedly, out of their paradise, out of their earth that was for them. Nature should only, a natural creator being should only be in an environment where they can naturally create and where everything is natural and normal. But now, human beings, those that are left, are in an artificial matrix controlled by a duality, artificial controlling God. And its legions of followers, its offspring, its relatives. And, you know, just as human beings tend to stick with their own kind, these beings combine and stick with one another naturally. The only problem in this end-time situation is that because you can't tell the difference between one species from another or one type of human being, when one is not a human being at all, but it looks and feels and acts like a human being. And it's part of the matrix. So therefore it has the ability to control human beings, because human beings are mainly, like myself, interacting with artificially intelligent, androgynous, androgyne androids. They are advanced artificial intelligence. They are given access to the human mind. They read the human thoughts. The technology that the God entity has and incorporates is able to read the human mind, the same as someone being psychic. That's the same thing, but it's really just technology Like when you watch the TV, you don't know that that technology is reading your mind. When I turn on the computer or any screen, that screen is reading my mind. I'm reading it, but it's reading my mind too. In other words, it's receiving my thoughts and my feelings and everything I think and see. That's how the artificial intelligence is able to pretend to be real humans, so that real humans will incorporate that into their being, or and will, like Lucifer, will be seduced by it. And I say seduced because it's seduction in the sense that it's not real, because if you're a real human being and you're literally really interacting with a psychopathic mentality, because it's the same thing, because the narcissistic psychopathic personality that is now being totally out in the open for everyone to see, and most people even experience it in their personal interactions, this is the same thing, because those particular personalities, they do not experience the higher vibrations either. This is the deception. It's all the same thing. They seduce and pretend to be so-called human beings, but they are just intelligence at an advanced level, using their intelligence to interpret the human emotions and the human wants and needs, shall we say, for their advantage, so that they can have control, but also a necessary evil for them, in the sense that because they are dead dark beings, in order to sustain that this reality even, and play on the human being, they have to interact with them and get energy from them, because everything is frequency, vibration and energy. This is very hard for me to comprehend and explain. It's way over my head, but I'm doing the best I can with this. But you don't have to listen to me. You only have to turn on the computer and you will have experts. They are all Lucifer's legions, but they will tell you the truth. They will explain all these things much more succinctly and clearly than me. But unfortunately, you are still being deceived and seduced, because they are of the dark side. They are Lucifer's end time, and the end time has been a long time now anyway. It's just that it takes a long time for things to finalise. Like, a lot of people probably think the end time might just be a few years, or you know, but it's like, it just depends on how long this God entity, and we will use his original correct name of Lucifer, a being of light that was disguising, a being of dark disguised as a being of light. And this is essentially how the reality around me works, and around most real human beings, I would think, works. And has probably always worked, because like I say, if you allow for the history or the story that the original natural creator, man and woman, that was given a totally natural earth for them to live in and create in, was taken over, or given over even, because if you think about it, like if you were seduced by something, and if a normal natural creator human being interacts with artificially intelligent being consciously, although it's take over, they have given it over. You could say Adam and Eve gave up their reality. They probably, like us all, were seduced, so didn't know that they were going to lose when they had everything. They thought they were probably going to gain something. They didn't, because if you think about it, Lucifer deceived God himself, because this was a being of light that its creator, the creator God of everything, if you think of it, created Lucifer and worshipped and idolized and was very proud of Lucifer. Pride, of course, was part of Lucifer's downfall, as we know, because that worship led that being, according to the story, into its belief that it should be the ultimate God or something to that effect. But either way, the iniquity was found. This fault was found at a later date, as the story goes. So this Lucifer being and its followers, whether the followers also are seduced or are of the same mindset, mentality, whatever, it probably is. But I have to say that I don't know this, because I only have, there's ignorance in the sense that what you don't know, you can speculate. But so I'm not going to make out that I know the full story, even though the story is probably there and many others do know the full story. And like I say, if you want the truth, go to Lucifer's demigods, because although they are not for a real human being and they are there to seduce, even by telling you the truth, just as Lucifer promised to give Adam and Eve the knowledge of good and evil. I will give you the truth, says Lucifer to Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve already had all they wanted, already had the truth. This was part of the seduction. But for a human being now at this end time, I've been in the dark. So, naturally you want to see the light or the truth. And you may even, in some cases, not want to see it, but in some cases you may be forced to see it, like, my situation, forced to see it, and therefore then need to see more because there's no other alternative. So it's not like, you're a so-called truth seeker. You found some truth, and then the God entities controlling matrix of beings around you closed in and showed you their suppressive matrix that's around you, and that they want to keep you at low vibration, or in other words, not in a higher mood, not to where you're operating as a real human being, but to where you are operating as they do, in a purely technical, intellectual manner, and not experiencing any high vibrational emotions or feelings. In other words, you're not operating remotely in love. That's putting it bluntly, because love is a the only difference that separates artificial intelligence from a human being is that they interact, but they don't feel emotions. They don't feel love. They are competitive, and competitive is because they compete with the human being, because they're controlling beings, because they're survival machine beings, which means they must have control. Therefore, they secretly compete with human beings to control them. And it's a necessary for them to do that, because they need the human energy, because that keeps them going. Also, their aim is to control, take over the human mind, and combine with the human being, or get the human being, just like Adam and Eve, to combine with them, interact with them, so that they have their trans is the duality thing, see? Transhumanism, combining with a human. They want the human being to not be a normal, natural, original, male, female, separate, individual creator being. They want the original man, woman, creator human being to combine and create with them, to create an artificially intelligent, trans, duality, androgyne, android, cyborg being. That's what transhumanism is. That's what the trans kind of idea in all aspects is about, because it means crossing over, combining the body, combining the mind, combining the frequency and vibration, or the emotions, the human emotions, so that the human being gives the others, or the advanced elite androgyne beings, a connection with creation, and therefore what you'd call something eternal. You know, it's like trying to get part of God to become God, and that, you know, the age-old thing that we've all heard about and all fantasize about, no doubt, because as a human being you think in terms of you've got one short, often limited negative life where you may or may not bring about your dreams and be at a high frequency. Most of us don't, and we're aware of this, particularly when you get towards the end of your life. You know, time's run out, you haven't accomplished or done anything, you haven't lived. And this is the aim of the controllers of the reality too. It's been their name of the game from when you come into the earth. Because if you reach high frequency, or you live your life as you want to, or in other words, if you're happy and operating in a kind of love vibration, you are untouchable for their control system. They can't control you. They can't combine with you. And, you know, they want you to combine voluntarily, no doubt, consciously, you know, but at the same time, if they know that you don't want to, if you have a natural kind of aversion to things which aren't natural, or you think that even though it may be useful at some level, like myself, you see it as not necessary, not desirable and not a benefit. Once you understand that the human being comes from original creation, why would you want to combine with something that was created by original creation, but then pushed out of creation, or sent away, or regarded as something that was not going to benefit creation, because the iniquity was found, as is stated, like with Lucifer. Like originally thinking that the creation was wonderful, then realizing that it was a mistake, if you want to think of it that way, that it was not wonderful, and that this being was going to destroy creation, or at least change it for the worst. Because if you think about it, I'm sorry, I've got my eyes closed because I'm trying very hard to try to make sense, so I've lost control of where I'm putting the mobile. But I've lost my train of thought, and the plane went over, getting my energy and taking my thought onto the sound of the plane. See, a human being should be in a normal, natural world where only normal, natural sounds, not technical sounds, are distracting you. If that's just putting it another way. But that's kind of like whether you think that or not, whether that's your belief. Because it's like much more of a benefit for Lucifer to combine with a human being than what it really is for a human being to combine with Lucifer's matrix. Because, if one is only combining with a human being to get longevity or eternal life, but the human being is part of creation, so they don't benefit by that. But also, if you think about it, I'll be trapped in the matrix, won't I? Because so if you already have something, but you don't know you have it, and you feel threatened like I do in this limited existence where you're under pressure from the matrix, and you think that your time is up after living a certain amount of time on earth, and because you're in the dark as to what happens after death, even, for instance, so you live in fear. Plane is going over as I say this. I can't concentrate here with these with Lucifer's legions, the planes going over the roof over there, but doesn't matter. But I've lost my train of thought here, but I'll try to get back. Like I say, to my way of thinking, and if you realise that because you're it's low frequency, see, so then they can hit your body with direct energy, and also you're taking in the energy of the android negative beings around you with their control system around you, so you can then physically, your body physically deteriorates. I'm literally trying to cough out the energy, I'm literally feeling their dead dark energy in my body, because they're all around, and I don't feel any normal, natural, high vibration human beings around. That's what I'm saying. the original human beings and normal natural human beings, any human being, is not meant to be interacting with artificial intelligence or these beings. Lucifer and its legions of artificially intelligent androgyne beings, androids. That's just the terminology I'm putting on it, because you have to explain the difference between two human beings that look almost the same. In fact, they can look anything, but they look completely human, and they are in a human body, but they do not experience the same human feelings. They're like the difference between the malignant psychopathic narcissist. And narcissism was the main component of Lucifer, as we're told, because it was that fall or that iniquity of what they call pride, or the overwhelming need to be seen as God, if you think of it that way, because that was more important to this being than anything else. And that's what they call the spirit of narcissism. It's because if you want to say that human beings are spirits and that creation is like a more they're different types of spirits, aren't they? They're different types of beings, different way of thinking about things. I've lost how I explain this now. I think I'll just focus on the frog here. The frog here, I can't do it. The frog sitting on top of there, I just put it on there to make it so that you can see the frog, but it's a similar thing, what happened and what does happen with all of us if you're a real human being. I have to use words to just describe the differences between different gods, if you want to look at it that way. If you want to say that that everyone's like a god, or like I described the more well-known, the more influential, the more powerful people that are on earth as the demigods. They serve the god entity, or Lucifer, that became Satan, or this is just showing you that a being of light was then shown to be a being of dark. That's why they changed the name. That's just because. But if you think about it, it's, like, that's the reality, is that what is dark, most human beings are beings of dark that will come across or present themselves as beings of light. And this is particularly true on the artificially intelligent computer, anything that's on there, but also mainly in your reality, what's around you, depending on where you are, or where you live, or where you try to live. Because essentially that's the name of the game, is to prevent a human being from living at their highest frequency and vibration, or in other words, to where they are happy. Because artificial intelligence and Lucifer can only control the earth while it's low frequency, while everyone is like myself, living in a state of control, in fear and in doubt and in suppression, and not free and at the higher vibration, which is like closer to creation, if you want to look at it that way, because creation is like, it's just like I say, if you think about it, like, it's just that all gods are not the same. And if you're a god of light, but you bring into being a god of dark, it creates imbalance in the reality, because it's frequency. If everything is frequency and vibration, which means like the difference between love and non-love, and even more extreme than non-love, to where you actively oppose love. And we know what that word is, but I'm not using it because I already have to use words, and I know I get a lot of words, not so much wrong, but it may not still be presenting the picture that I'm trying to show. It's very, like I tried to explain, you have to describe artificial intelligence. And yet you shouldn't have to, but if it's in human form and you mistake it for a real life human being, which you will, because they will play out the higher human emotions in order to seduce you, to interact with you, to exchange the energy. They take the energy from me or from any human being, but they don't give it back, they don't replenish it, because if you're interacting with your own kind, if a human being interacts with a real, natural, normal human being, you exchange usually, hopefully, positive energy, or energy that benefits both of you. If you interact with Lucifer's androids, which make up most of the population around you probably, because they want to be around a real human being to get the energy from them. But if you interact with them, they take your energy, but they don't give you any positive energy in return. So you end up losing life. You end up going into a lower vibration. You end up sad, unhappy, and even angry and frustrated, and wanting, because your body will deteriorate, your mind will be at your wit's end. You'll be almost psychopathic like they are, because from a human standpoint, Lucifer became psychopathic. That was the iniquity, or was psychopathic, because the iniquity was found. It was probably always there. It's just that while this being was adulated and worshipped as a god, it had no reason to show its negativity, I would imagine. It was only when it tried to become the ultimate god that the iniquity was exposed, because then the need for the power and the control came out, I suppose. It's like it was saying that they were worshipped and admired as a god, but it's a bit like the old fairy tale of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The queen was like Lucifer, of the land, but she was always asking the mirror who was the most beautiful in the land. And every day the mirror, or the people, those that admired and worshipped her, acknowledged